Are you willing to put aside all speculation and announce to the people here that you are not running in 2020? No.
Overall, wages are down. People are working longer hours for less money. Obama these current illegal immigrants.
African Americans being mistreated in society.
Noting that world leaders laughed at President Trump.
Amendment
Thanks to the
Russian witch
president's
hunt.
trade war.
You know what it is? Our new slogan, 2020. Keep America great.
Hello, I'm Drew Sheldrick, and this is 2020 Vision. My guest this week was the first black woman to be elected to US Congress for the Republican Party. Mia Love represented Utah's 4th District in the 114th Congress. She was appointed to the House Financial Services Committee and was a rare Republican member of the Congressional Black Caucus. During last year's midterm elections, she drew the ire of President Trump for not showing him enough attention in her re-election campaign. Amidst the so-called blue wave, she missed out on reclaiming a seat by less than 1 percentage point and has since become an outspoken critic of the president over his comments and interactions with black Americans and other minorities. Let's have a quick listen to Mia's rise to prominence in the Republican Party.
The American dream isn't just my story. It isn't just your story. It's our story. It's a story of human struggle, standing up and striving for more. Our story has been told for over 200 years with small steps and giant leaps. From a woman on a bus to a man with a dream. From the bravery of the greatest generation to the innovators and entrepreneurs of today, this is our story. This is our America. This is the America we know because we built it.
They made history. You are the first black Republican woman to be elected to the House of Representatives.
We were the first to do it. So let this be a lesson to the nation that we're not interested in dividing Americans based on gender, race, social status. We are more interested in the integrity and the honesty of a candidate, someone who is going to return power back to the people and away from Washington.
Mia Love. I saw Mia Love. She'd call me all the time to help her with a hostage situation, being held hostage in Venezuela. But Mia Love gave me no love. And she lost. Too bad. Sorry about that, Mia.
This gave me a clear vision of his world as it is. No real relationships, just convenient transactions. That is an insufficient way to implement sincere service and policy. Good news is, I'm not going away. But now, I am unleashed, I am untethered, and I am unshackled. And I can say exactly what's on my mind.
Mia Love, welcome to Australia and thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I'll get to Donald Trump out of the way because I'm sure you're sick to death of talking about him. What rattled him so much about your re-election campaign last year that he felt the need to come out and criticise you so publicly, do you think?
I'm not really sure. And, I really don't even know how that happened. We worked together really well with bringing Joshua Holt home. The State Department was excellent in working with me. It took about a year and a half. The previous administration really wasn't responsive at all.
Just for those not familiar with that case, yeah. Who was Joshua?
Joshua is an American that went to Venezuela to marry his sweetheart, a young man, and ended up being put in prison on trumped-up charges. It was just a horrible situation, pretty much being held by the Venezuelan regime there, and it took a while for us to be able to get him out. At first, they were trying to get him out for ransom, and anyway, it was a horrible situation, and we were able to get him out, and that was a big deal at that point. Donald Trump had gotten about 19 prisoners out from foreign countries, and this was something that I felt like I was happy that he was working and doing his job, and I was doing my job. So when I got that criticism, I'm not really sure where that came from. I think that really what he was trying to do was sending a message that those who didn't really stick with him 100% obviously didn't get through, which is really not the case. There were so many people that were with him 100%. And in Utah, the electorate is a little different, and I think he likes to think that the world revolves around him. So everything happens. People either get elected or they don't get elected by him.
So he was angry that you hadn't invited him to your district. Is that what initially sort of spurred off that anger?
I think so. I think he wanted to come to the district. And I just felt like I needed to do this on my own. I didn't want the president to be a crutch, and I didn't want to owe anyone anything either. Do I regret it? No, I don't regret it at all, because at the end of the day, I didn't want to owe anybody, and I wanted to do things on my own terms. And, it was just really a perfect storm. They had medical marijuana on the ballot, redistricting on the ballot. I was out there on my own. The NRCC really didn't see this as a race that they thought was going to come close. And so it was too late by the time they came in. And, we are where we are.
You wrote an opinion piece a few months back that you believed the comments Trump made about 4 Democratic Congresswomen of colour, telling them to go back to where they came from, were racist statements. The president also made some disparaging comments about the birthplace of your parents, Haiti, calling it a shithole country. Do you believe the president is racist?
It would be completely unfair for me to call anyone racist or not racist. I can only make that call with myself. Right. And I think it's important for me to do everything I can to give people the benefit of the doubt. I believe that those comments were racist. I don't know if he is. I don't think anybody would be able to tell you. I don't know if he knows whether he is or not. Yeah. But it's important to say that those comments are certainly racist comments. And whether you mean for them to be mean or what the intentions are, I just didn't see any good that was coming out of those comments. He's the president of the United States, and his job is to represent all American citizens, those who like him and those who don't. Yeah. I mean, that is his job. If you are a U.S. citizen, if you're an American citizen, then you are worthy of his efforts and support.
Were you angered that more of your Republican colleagues didn't come out to say that they disagree with those comments, or it was unprofessional of the president to have said those things? Well, it takes quite a bit to make me angry. Okay. I'm a pretty optimistic person, and I've also believed very firmly that no one is going to cause me to behave a certain way, right. That I need to do everything I can to be an example. Mm-hmm. But do I wish that more of my colleagues would call out things that are outside of the Republican platform? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Republicans have put themselves into 2 categories for the most part. Those who protect the president at all costs, and I think that that's to the detriment of the platform, the party platform, and those who leave the Republican Party because they don't want the president representing them. In the United States, unlike the prime minister, in the United States, they see the president as, you may call it the leader of the party, but he's not actually the leader of the party. Right. The party is set by a set of platforms and principles. And what I believe is that I'm trying to get people to understand that there's a third option out there, and that is to protect the platform, call people out so you remind people what that platform is. And that's the only way you're going to preserve the Republican Party and what it stands for, is by saying, hey, this is what we believe in, and I'm sorry, this is not what we believe in. You are outside of the purview of what our platform is. I think the 2-party system is incredibly important. I do not believe that we would be doing the country any good by getting rid of the Republican Party. So I think it's worthy of all of our efforts to preserve that Republican platform, which is the party I belong to. You were down in Melbourne last week, where I heard you speak very fondly about your time in the Congressional Black Caucus. How did that very Democrat-dominated group take to this Republican in their mix? Well, first of all, they were, I think both of us, the Congressional Black Caucus body and myself went into it cautiously. And I think that going in with an open heart
and a need and a want to make the relationship work and mean something was key. And I think that the acceptance that I got from some key members of the Congressional Black Caucus was key. Marcia Fudge is Representative Marcia Fudge from Ohio is one of my, she's like my sister. She's a big sister to me. And she really paved the way for to say, give her a chance. Hey, wait a minute. Let's hear her out. And from that, and from people being able to get to know me and vice versa, I formed some great relationships there. I can name so many people that are there that I'm absolutely fond of. I get myself in trouble because when I start naming some names, there are people that are left out. Bonnie, who is a representative there, Joyce, Beatty, Cedric, the Reverend Rev Emmanuel Cleaver was there. They're like really close to me. I had a great relationship with Elijah Cummings, who just recently passed away. They're people that I keep close to my heart. And if anybody is listening to this and I didn't mention your name, I love you too.
And how about on policy? How did you find it, if there was a contentious piece of legislation that was up for debate? I mean, how was that working with the members of that caucus to kind of sort of manage these sort of pivotal issues that both sides of politics want to work on?
Well, it's, again, a really interesting dynamic. When they needed my vote, they asked me for it. But they also understood when I couldn't give it to them, too. I can talk about tax reform, for instance. They came to me and they said, Mia, we're not going to be able to support this tax reform bill, but can you do what you can to get child tax credit in the bill and do what you can to do to get an elderly tax credit. There are a lot of Black communities that take care of their elderly parents, and it's an added financial burden. And so being able to get the tax credit for them who are taking care of an elderly parent was important. I believe that we get more of what we incentivize, and so it's really good to see families taking care of each other, and they should have the funds to be able to take care of their family members. So to me, that was something that was easily within my principles and platform that I felt was worthy of fighting for, and we were able to get it in the tax reform bill. Had we not had those relationships, I don't think that the tax reform bill would have been as good as it was.
You mentioned Elijah Cummings, who sadly passed away last week at the age of 68. As you said, he was a member of the Congressional Black Caucus and another congressman who was a subject of negative attention from the president. What kind of man was he? How did you find him as a man?
Okay, so, he was incredibly strong. He is ferocious when it comes to his beliefs, but he showed me examples of integrity. I knew him to be a person. I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We were able to do some genealogy for him, went back 6 generations, and he was incredibly grateful for that because it meant something to him to find out about his family, and it was such a great thing. And I also saw him stand up to his own a person on the same side of the aisle when Representative Tlaib went after Representative Mark Meadows, who's a Republican, and said that he was racist. Elijah Cummings just kind of gavelled down and said, wait a minute, I'm going to stop the proceedings right now. You're not calling him racist, are you? Because he's a good friend of mine. And it really just shocked everyone. It didn't shock me, but it shocked everyone because here's this freshman that has her chairman saying, back it down. Yeah. He's a friend of mine. And it set a completely different tone. And to me, when you've got someone that's willing to stand up at his own detriment to say, that is a friend of mine, please do not call him racist, because he's not. It said volumes to me about who he is and what he stood for. And at least you can trust his integrity.
Given all your experiences with the president, his comments about minorities, about your time with the Republican Party in Congress, would you still recommend women, and particularly women of color, join and run for the Republican Party?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I think that unless if there aren't enough people standing up for what they believe in, if there aren't enough people making their voices heard, someone inferior to you is going to do it for you. I tell my children that all the time. If you are not standing up and talking about your beliefs, then somebody's going to fill the void. And I think that that's the problem, is that too many people are allowing one person to fill the void, and people are flawed. They will let you down. But when you collectively have a checks and balances, people that are holding your feet to the fire, people that are saying, hey, this is not what we believe in, you need to back down on that, you're going to end up really hurting the integrity of your beliefs and your platform. So I absolutely would encourage anyone to stand up, to run, Black women especially, to run for Congress or any office. I think it's important to have people of color on both sides of the aisle.
Sure. I wonder what you thought of former Republican National Committee Chairman Michael Steele. He was a bit of a trailblazer like you. He was the first RNC chair, first Black RNC chair, and first to be elected to a statewide office in Maryland. He's all but turned his back on the party at this stage. Do you think he was mistreated by the party during his tenure?
I don't know. All I know is what he has said. I have met Michael Steele when I first ran against my predecessor and lost. He was a great support. I think that, again, it's important to stand firm in your beliefs. I think leaving the party is a bad idea. People like Justin Amash, who left the party and is now an independent, I think that's a bad idea because he's on an island caucusing with himself.
Yeah.
And really, the best analogy I could use is this. The smaller the gap, the less difficult it is to build that bridge. It's even more difficult when you are on an island on your own, right? And so what I'm seeing with politics now is that the left has moved further to the left, the right has moved further to the right, and it'll be an incredibly expensive, timely, difficult bridge to build. And the closer, obviously, the two are, the more support, the more integrity, the better the foundation. So I think it's important that we all remember that we're living in this situation that we've created for ourselves, the left and the right. The right not sticking up for their principles and at least helping the president and keeping him balanced, and the left with this all or nothing, with representatives like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Representative Tlaib or Representative Omar. That is, you're talking about the very, very fringes of that, and there's nobody left in the middle.
You obviously believe change is possible in the Republican Party. Do you believe it's possible under this president, or do you think Republicans are going to have to wait until this president goes, whether it's next year or 4 years after that, before they can really kind of establish some sort of changes, so certainly in regards to race, for example?
Well, I really don't know. That's a difficult question because our problems are so big and vast, and they're not being taken care of. We have to do something for people to believe in Congress's integrity, to believe in our institutions, to believe in government. Right now, there's none of that. There's no trust in government institutions. There's no trust in Congress. There is a battle, which is a political battle, a civil war, that I would call it, where people are completely being left behind. Meaningful legislation is not happening. It's impossible for it to happen in this environment. Congress has delegated all of their power to the White House and to the institutions, so it's hard for them to get it back. And so I do not believe that anything beneficial, really meaningful, is going to happen until there's a coming together of the minds and to stop this political battle that we see going on that has seeped into American lives. It's not just on Washington any longer. Now the fingers have reached out to people, where one side is giving Americans permission to be evil to the other side. There's no civility any longer. There is anger, there's frustration, and there's not even common decency and respect.
I think it was your concession speech where you said that you believe Trump and Republicans' interactions or relationships with the black community was transactional. What did you mean by that?
Okay, so what I was talking about was the president and the fact that he requires 100% loyalty, but people are expendable. Members of Congress are expendable to him, and in terms of my Republican colleagues, I think we can do a better job reaching out to communities. Too many times we legislate from Washington, but you really don't go into those communities. Instead of calling some of those communities rat-infested, horrible, why don't you go in there and talk to them and actually get a sense of what it's like to live in those places? Unless you actually go to where people need you, you're not going to make any effective change. And unless you actually go and speak to people, they don't think that you care about them. And so I think we need to make sure that when you're making decisions, it's important for them to feel like you at least care about them. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I meant. Republicans need to do a better job going into communities and letting them know that I'm not doing this for my buddies on Wall Street. I'm not doing this for your, for the corporate America. I'm doing this for the mom and pop shops or those who want to one day have their own mom or pop shop. I believe that the Republican Party is the party of the American dream, and there isn't an American that needs the American dream more than people that are in poverty that are looking for their piece of that dream.
Let's talk 2020 and impeachment. I heard you say in some of your media interviews last week that you don't believe that Democrats have a case for impeachment at this stage. Why do you think that?
Well, mainly because since the president got elected and my being in Congress the last 2 years I was in Congress from day one, they were talking about impeaching 45. And it just set the stage for they did not feel like he was their legitimate president. And they were going to do everything they can to get him out. So since then, I've seen the hearings on Kavanaugh, which I thought was absolutely horrible for Dr. Ford and Kavanaugh. I've seen whether it's tax, whether it's you name it, Mueller, they've always been looking for something. Now, the other thing also is I do think that the calls were they were inappropriate, especially because it was aimed towards a political opponent.
Yeah, this is the Ukraine call you're talking about.
Yes, this is Ukraine call. And so if it were just focused on that, or if this was all of a sudden, oh my gosh, this is happening, I think we need to, it would have been different. But, and also I think that the process it has been is different. We've only had 2 impeachment processes in our history, and the fact that they haven't taken a vote on the floor, to me, is shutting the American people out and politics in Washington. So I think the best way to do it is an open, transparent way. If Speaker Pelosi really wants the American people to understand what she is doing, the best thing you can do is give the American people the ability to have their voices heard on the floor. Because if they're not taking a vote, then the American voice is completely shut out of it. Also, the difference between this inquiry and something like, for instance, a Benghazi hearing. Both parties were involved in the hearings, were involved in the questioning, were involved in trying to find out information. This one, Republicans are completely being left out. So you're not going to get a Republican that is going to vote for any impeachment proceedings if they're completely shut out of the process. So I think that this is really unconventional the way it's being done. I don't agree with it. I think also that they've been looking for something for a very long time. And at the end of the day, impeachment only hurts the United States. And actually, I think it hurts the world. We will all feel, even in Australia, I believe we will all feel the effects of an impeachment inquiry, especially in this environment.
Is that because you feel like it's taking away a democratic right of the people to elect their president? It's Congress taking away the people's choice?
Yes, especially when a vote is not being held on the floor.
Right.
They're not. Understand that the House of Representatives is a branch of government that's closest to people. In the 4th District, the district that I represented 671,000 people. If I cannot vote on the floor, then those people do not have a voice.
Right.
So the fact that this is happening and people have not had the ability to tell their congressman to vote yes or no, that is shutting them out. Also, you have to have, you have to be very careful. Impeachment's usually the last resort. And I don't believe that we've gotten there yet. I think that there's a lot more information gathering that should even come close to something like that. But they've had it out for the president for a long time. And this is from somebody who is not necessarily an apologist for this president saying this. So again, this is my integrity. I believe that if there's really something that they want to open up, they need to be a little bit more transparent about it and really impeach because of something that was done illegally, not because you don't like the president.
What do you make of the Democratic field of candidates for 2020 so far? Do you think any of them have what it takes to beat President Trump?
Well, there are no Obamas there.
No, there are no Obamas. No.
And I think that that's a big problem. I mean, he set the bar pretty high in terms of communication and his ability to reach out.
Yep.
And you have to understand this is my perspective. You may not like what I'm going to say, but this is the reality of United States politics. The president is still doing well economically.
Yeah.
Unemployment is low. You may not like his personality. He actually said this, and I think this was one of the most brilliant things he said. He's like, you may not like me. I don't need you to like me, but you're going to have to vote for me or else you will lose your jobs. You will lose all of the things that I've built up. And I think that that's a seed that's been planted that is going to grow or continue to grow with the American people. But there isn't anyone that's really talking about the real economic issues and how they're going to fix it. Either they're talking about their vision of free healthcare for all, free Medicare for all, or talking about free education for all. They're not talking about how that's actually going to happen. Who's going to get taxed? How is that going to be implemented? What is the cost at the end of the day for the American people? There's a lot of talk about who can beat Donald Trump, and that seems to be what is taking up the space.
Right.
And so I think that's also an issue. I think that you've got an Elizabeth Warren who seems to be pretty popular on the left. I'm afraid, and again, this is my prediction, when I'm looking at someone like me who is looking for a place to go, there is not one Democrat candidate that I feel comfortable with. I've worked with Tulsi Gabbard, actually, and I think that she, if she ran as a third party of some sort, I think that she would be actually pretty formidable. But
really?
She can't get past the
Because Hillary Clinton
primary.
came out this week and said she thought that she was probably suggesting that she might have been a Russian plant who she was going to run as a third party candidate.
First of all, that was inappropriate for Hillary Clinton to say.
Yeah.
Because she's had her own ties with Russia in the past.
Hillary has.
In the Clinton Foundation. I think that Tulsi Gabbard, who has served the United States in the military, she actually built some great bridges as a member of in the House of Representatives. And I think
across the aisle, you mean, with
across
Republicans?
The aisle.
Right.
But I think what Hillary Clinton said is very indicative of what I've just said, is that they're just horrified of a third-party candidate because they know that a third-party candidate would destroy the presidential race for Democrats.
Yeah.
Think about Howard Schultz, who's the CEO of Starbucks. They got rid of him as quickly as they could get rid of anybody because people are like, oh, listen, here's somebody who, has built a business who is sitting there saying, hey, a lot of Americans still want their private health care. They want their private insurance. They don't want to go to a single payer option. And so he started bringing some of those things up. And of course, it got my attention because I'm like, okay, here's someone who's actually telling us the truth about how things are going to work. But I mean, they're just trying to shut him down.
In terms of third-party candidates or perhaps alternative candidates within the Republican Party, can you foresee any of your former Republican colleagues running against the president next year? I'm thinking particularly of perhaps your state senator Mitt Romney.
Oh, gosh. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Mitt Romney would have the appetite for doing it. I always believe, and I'll get a lot of people that may be upset with me, but I believe that the more options we have on the Republican side, the better it is for us. Yeah. So if he got into the race, I mean, at least there would be, I mean, we can start talking about plans and ideals again, right? We can start talking about the economy and moving on to the, infrastructure and immigration reform. Gosh, I mean, I really would like to get immigration reform done in the United States.
Right. Why is that issue particularly important to you?
Well, because of what's happening at the border. Mm-hmm. And because there are people that are literally waiting in the wings that want to be a United States citizen, but there's really no option. There's no door open for them. So I think that the best way to stop illegal immigration is to open up the front door and really set legal immigration reform and close the back door. I think that would also help us with the crisis at the border. Instead of trying to just be incredibly radical about what we're going to do at the border. I think national security is important. So I believe in making sure that we have strong borders. A lot of countries have strong borders, but you have to here's the best analogy I can use. It's like a boat, and the boat is filling up with water. And people are saying, what are we going to do with this boat that has so much water? One of the first things you need to do is, instead of trying to get a bucket and bailing out the water, you fix the hole in the boat.
Right.
I'm a parent. I'm pretty practical.
Yeah.
So you fix the hole in the boat.
Right.
And that's the only thing that'll give you options. Then you kind of can take some time to figure out what you're going to do and how your immigration process works.
Just finally, no third-party candidate. None of the Democratic field are impressing you at the moment. So looking at those particular elements, Trump re-elected in 2020, do you think?
If an election were held today, I think he would win.
Okay. Mia Love, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks also this week to the Bubba Brass Band, Ketzer and Lloyd Rogers for their musical contributions, and to the University of Sydney's Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences for their studio assistance.